Manager denies water to a homeless man, but the waitress shares a snack with him. Hours later, a Mercedes pulls up to her house. Mike wandered the sidewalks, his eyes lost in memories. The ex-soldier, now homeless, wore torn clothes and had an unkempt beard indicating days, perhaps weeks, of neglect. With each step, he felt the weight of his history, the events that led him to this life of abandonment and loneliness. Mike stopped at a bus stop, observing the frantic routine around him. People rushed by, heads buried in their phones, barely noticing his presence. A young woman, with brown hair and a warm smile, watched him from a distance. He didn't notice, but the object he carried in his pocket caught her attention. It was an old coin with inscriptions that seemed to tell stories of times long past. Mike kept it there not just for its beauty, but for a meaning that no one else could understand. The coin was a symbol of a past he struggled to forget. Yet at the same time, it connected him to his true identity. Mike, a former soldier with a dry throat and tired eyes, broached a charming cafe, seeking a glass of water. When Mike entered, the customers' gazes turned toward him, some with curiosity, others with disdain. The manager, Roger, a burly man with a stern face, stood behind the counter, observing the scene with an air of contempt. Mike took a hesitant step toward the counter. "Excuse me, sir, could you give me a glass of water?" Mike asked, his voice hoarse and trembling. Roger crossed his arms, his gaze as cold as steel. "We don't serve water to homeless people." "You're not going to buy anything? You'd better leave," he replied, with a tone of disdain that made Mike feel even smaller. The humiliation burned in his chest as he looked around, noticing the indifference of the people who had once been strangers, but now seemed so distant. He took a step back, almost turning to leave, when a young waitress, Sarah, watched him from afar. Her eyes shone with compassion, and her mind quickly recalled times when she too had felt the harshness of life. Sarah, with her white apron and hair pulled back in a simple bun, felt an instant connection with that man. It wasn't just his appearance that touched her, but the pain that emanated from his defeated posture. She remembered when, a few years ago, she found herself in a similar situation, needing help and being ignored. Her heart ached. "Sir, just a moment," Sarah called, determined to do something. Roger glared at her with a look of disapproval. "What are you doing, Sarah? I don't want you getting involved with that kind of person," he said, his voice firm and authoritative. I just want to help. He's thirsty," Sarah replied, her voice trembling slightly, but full of determination. Before we continue with this story full of twists and turns, don't forget to follow our channel so you don't miss any of our exciting narratives. We have many amazing stories to share with you. "I will not tolerate any deviation from the rules," Roger retorted, his cold gaze fixed on Sarah as if expecting her to back down. She hesitated, the internal conflict forming between the compassion she felt for Mike and the obedience she owed to Roger. However, the image of Mike, almost defeated, made her decision crystallize. Kindness she felt was stronger than the fear. "I will help him," Sarah said, determined. "You can't stop me from doing what's right." Roger looked at her with anger. But before he could protest, Sarah had already walked away, heading to the back of the cafe. She filled a cup with fresh water and, with determination pulsing through her veins, grabbed a snack that had been left over from the morning, intent on sharing it. Meanwhile, Mike, who was already preparing to leave, felt a gentle hand on his shoulder. He turned and saw Sarah. With her welcoming smile, which contrasted with the hostile environment around them. "Here, please," she said, extending the cup of water and the snack. "You deserve this." Mike's eyes filled with gratitude, and he felt a wave of emotion. "Thank you," he murmured, his voice choked. "No one has done this for me in a long time." The scene was about to turn into something that would change their lives forever. But at that moment, a simple act of kindness was all that mattered. Sarah felt her heart race as she left the cafe kitchen through the back, hesitant but determined. With a cup of water in one hand and a snack wrapped in paper towel in the other, she headed to the back door, where the daylight illuminated the small space, contrasting with the dark atmosphere that surrounded her. The smell of fresh coffee and the clinking of cups in the background seemed more distant, as her mind focused solely on Mike, the ex-soldier who had entered the cafe moments before. When she finally opened the door, the fresh air hit her. Mike was sitting there. Thank you. Really? I didn't know there were still people like you around, he said, his eyes shining with contained tears. Life has been tough lately. I understand, Sarah replied, her heart tightening at the sound of pain in his voice. She remembered her own tough moments when she felt invisible and worthless. We all face battles. The important thing is not to give up. As Mike took a sip of water, a comfortable silence settled between them. He seemed to absorb not only the liquid but also the kindness she was offering him. You are a good person, Sarah. I don't know how to thank you. You don't need to thank me, she replied, feeling a little embarrassed. I just want you to know that you're not alone. After a few minutes of conversation, Mike finished the snack and stood up. I really have to go, he said with a tone of reluctance. This means a lot to me. I'll remember this. Sarah watched as he walked away, a slim, tired figure disappearing down the street. She felt a mix of sadness and hope, knowing she had done something good. Looking down, she noticed an old coin gleaming in the sunlight. Without thinking, she picked it up, feeling its weight in her palms. Hey, Mike, she shouted, but he was already far away. You forgot this. He turned slowly, and upon seeing the coin in her hand, smiled. It's just an old coin. You don't need to worry about it. No, wait, Sarah insisted, stepping closer once again. It might have some value to you. Mike hesitated, but seeing the determination in her eyes, decided to accept it. All right, but keep it as a reminder that kindness still exists. I promise I'll take care of it, Sarah assured, feeling warmth grow inside her. And I'll always remember you. With one last wave, Mike continued on his way, while Sarah returned to the cafe, her heart light, but her mind restless with what might happen next. Little did she know that Roger was watching her from afar, a stern look on his face, promising that the consequences of her kindness were yet to come. That girl is going to regret it, murmured to himself as the day went on. Sarah had barely finished serving coffee to a customer when Roger, the manager, called her to the counter in a frigid tone. Roger's gaze was fixed on her, and Sarah felt a chill run down her spine. Sarah, I want to talk to you, he said, not hiding his irritation. Sarah approached, trying to remain calm. Yes, sir, she replied, her voice trembling slightly. Roger crossed his arms and took a deep breath, as if trying to control his anger. What do you think you were doing yesterday, giving food and water to that homeless man? He asked, his voice laced with contempt. Sarah hesitated, feeling the weight of guilt. I was just trying to help, sir. He was thirsty and hungry. It's not your job to help homeless people, Sarah. Roger exploded, slamming his hand on the counter. Your job is to serve paying customers and follow my orders. The customers nearby looked in their direction, curious and uncomfortable with the scene. I understand, sir, but... Sarah tried to explain, but was interrupted. There's no but, Roger shouted. Because of your disobedience, I'm going to deduct the cost of the snack and water from your paycheck. And from today on, I'll be keeping an eye on you. I won't tolerate any more acts of insubordination. Sarah felt a knot form in her throat. Her salary was already low, and any deduction would be a heavy blow. Yes, sir, she murmured, lowering her eyes to avoid the customer's gazes. Rest of the day passed in a blur of tension and oppression. Roger seemed determined to make Sarah's life a nightmare. He called her to do the most thankless tasks, and criticized her at every opportunity. Sarah, table 3 is still dirty. Clean it properly, he shouted, even though the table was spotless. Sarah, you're taking too long to serve the order. The customers are waiting, he said, ignoring the fact that she was overwhelmed. Each word from Roger was a blow to Sarah's spirit. She kept her head down, trying not to let the tears fall. The co-workers threw sympathetic glances, but no one dared to intervene. They also feared the manager's wrath. By the end of the shift, Sarah felt exhausted, not just physically, but emotionally. She knew she had done the right thing by helping Mike, but the consequences were harsher than she had imagined. As she put away her things, she felt a gentle hand on her shoulder. It was Maria, a co-worker. Sarah, you were very brave yesterday, Maria said in a whisper. Don't let Roger bring you down. We all know you did the right thing. Sarah smiled, grateful for the support. Thank you, Maria. I just hope things get better. Maria nodded and gave Sarah an encouraging pat on the shoulder before walking away. As she left the cafe, Sarah took a deep breath, feeling the cool night air. She knew the road would be tough, but the kindness she felt in her heart was stronger than Roger's oppression. With the old coin still tucked in her pocket, she decided she wouldn't give up. The journey was just beginning, and Sarah was determined to fight for what she believed in. Sarah held the old coin between her fingers, closely observing the details that seemed to tell a forgotten story. Metallic shine reflected the dim light of the cafe, while confused thoughts crowded her mind. Where did it come from? What is its value? She murmured, almost as if she expected the coin to respond. The object, although simple at first glance, seemed to carry an emotional weight, connection to something beyond her understanding. When she got home, Sarah placed the coin on the table next to a notebook where she wrote her daily reflections. The soft light from the lamp illuminated the space in a comforting way, but it couldn't dissipate the unease that accompanied her. She remembered her father, who always said that kindness returned in unexpected ways. Sarah felt a shiver run down her spine. The day had been long and exhausting, and the image of Mike with his sad eyes and defeated posture wouldn't leave her mind. But something else was bothering her even more. Outside, a neighbor was watching her strangely. He was leaning against the fence, holding a beer, and his eyes seemed to follow her every move. Sarah felt a growing discomfort, as if his presence was a sign that something was about to change in her life. "Why are you looking at me like that?" Sarah asked, trying to hide the unease in her voice. The man smiled enigmatically, but did not respond. He just continued to watch her, causing her heart to race. She quickly entered the house and locked the door, taking a deep breath to calm her nerves. Hours later, as night fell and the city began to light up, the sound of a powerful engine echoed down the street, capturing the attention of all the residents. Sarah approached the window and, looking outside, was frozen in place. A luxurious Mercedes was parked in front of her house, and a small crowd of onlookers began to gather. The shine of the metallic paint reflected the streetlights, and the car looked like a monolith of wealth amidst the simplicity of the other parked vehicles. "Who could it be?" she murmured to herself, her eyes fixed on the scene. The driver got out of the car, and to her surprise, it was Mike. But he didn't look like the same man she had met at the cafe. Dressed in a sharp suit, his hair was styled, and his previously tired expression now radiated confidence and determination. "Mike?" Sarah exclaimed, unable to contain the disbelief in her voice. Turned and smiled, a smile that emanated a mix of gratitude and a hint of mystery. "Hi, Sarah," he replied, walking closer. "Can we talk?" "Sure, but what happened to you?" Curiosity and concern were evident on her face. "You were so different." He glanced at the group of onlookers gathering around, and Sarah realized that the situation was attracting a lot of attention. "Let's take a walk. I need to tell you something." As they walked, Mike began to explain. "After that conversation at the cafe, I realized I needed to change my life. The coin you found, it's not just a coin. It's a symbol of my past, a reminder of what I lost and what I can still regain." Sarah frowned, intrigued. "But how did you?" "I always had a plan, but I was so lost that I couldn't see it. That coin led me to a group of people who helped me get back on my feet. Now I'm a businessman, and I want to repay the kindness you showed me." "Repay my kindness?" Sarah asked, confused. "But what I did was nothing special." "You don't understand. What you did for me was more than just a simple act of kindness. You gave me hope when I had none, and that's worth more than you can imagine." He stopped and looked into her eyes. "And now I want to do something for you." At that moment, Mike's gaze was intense, and Sarah felt that something deeper was forming between them. "What do you have in mind?" she asked, curiosity weighing on her words. "Let's do this together. I want you to be a part of it. But first, I need you to know some things about the coin." As he spoke, the tension in the air grew, and the murmurs of the crowd around them seemed distant. Sarah was absorbed in Mike's words, each sentence revealing a new aspect of his life she had never imagined. His past, the struggles he faced, and the impact that a simple gesture of compassion could have on his journey. "I want you to know that this coin represents more than just money, symbolizes kindness and gratitude. I want you to be part of what I'm building now, a way to help others, just as you did for me." Sarah felt a wave of emotion. What had started as a simple act of empathy was now transforming into something much bigger. However, a part of her still wondered what was really behind Mike's transformation. There was a mystery hanging in the air, and she was determined to uncover the whole truth. The shiny Mercedes slowly pulled away as Sarah watched in shock. Mike, now impeccably dressed, walked towards her with a warm smile, his eyes reflecting a story of overcoming that she could barely imagine. The air was thick with anticipation as he stopped a few steps away, taking a moment to absorb the scene before breaking the silence. "Sarah, I don't know how to thank you for that act of kindness," Mike said, his voice steady but full of emotion. He pulled a small leather folder from his pocket and opened it, revealing a check that glimmered in the sunlight. "This is for you, a way to give back everything you did for me." As she hesitated to accept, Mike continued. "That snack and the glass of water changed my life. You don't know, but I was on the brink of giving up, and you gave me a reason to keep going." Sarah looked at the check again, battling the emotions that surged within her. "I just wanted to help. I never expected anything in return." "Sometimes, the simplest actions have profound consequences," he said, pausing as if he were remembering something. "And speaking of consequences, did you see the coin you left behind?" "Yes." Mike smiled, a nostalgic gleam in his eyes. "That coin has a special value. It belongs to a secret society that my father and your father were part of. They helped those in need, just as you did for me. The symbol you have in your tattoo, one of the emblems of that society." Sarah was stunned, the revelation catching her off guard. "My father? He was part of this? I never knew." "He was, and I believe he would want you to continue that legacy," said, his voice full of conviction. "Your kindness goes beyond what you imagine. It's not just about helping, but about inspiring others to do the same." She felt a lump in her throat. "But I'm just a waitress. What can I do?" "Can do much more than you think. Your heart is big, and you've already started. Look at me, I'm a former soldier who went through hardships, but now I'm here, ready to give back. And you can be the spark that ignites change in the lives of others." Mike encouraged her. Sarah took a deep breath, absorbing every word. "So what do I do?" "Use your story, your experience. Connect with people who need help. Together, we can make a difference," he suggested, tone determined. "And about the coin, you should keep it. It's a symbol of your bond with the past and a reminder that kindness always returns." She looked at the coin in her pocket, now with new meaning. "I will do it, Mike. I promise I will use my voice to help others." "But how?" Mike inquired, a glimmer of determination beginning to form in his eyes. "What can I do? You have a powerful story. The businessman and the community needs to hear it. Together we can show who Roger really is." "I have nothing to lose," Mike said, now with new hope. "If this helps others not go through what I went through, I will do it. Let's expose this man." With a plan in mind, the trio gathered with some neighborhood residents. Sarah, now full of courage, shared her story and Mike's. The businessman brought up Roger's inhumane practices, and soon the community united, demanding changes. Cafe. In the emotional climax, as the crowd gathered in front of the cafe, Sarah held the old coin and looked at Mike. "You know, this coin and my tattoo represent something bigger than ourselves. They represent the kindness that can change lives." "You're right," Mike replied, a smile on his face. "And kindness will truly always be rewarded." Thus, with the strength of the community and the courage of a former soldier and a kind waitress, Mike and Sarah's story of overcoming became a symbol of hope, showing that even in the most challenging circumstances, kindness can triumph. The morning in Sarah's neighborhood began like any other, but the atmosphere was charged with anticipation. The sun was shining brightly, making the birds sing cheerfully while children played on the sidewalk. However, a buzz began to form when a luxurious Mercedes stopped in front of Sarah's simple house. People stepped out of their homes, curious to find out who was in that imposing car, contrasted with the humility of the neighborhood. Mike, now dressed in a smart suit that accentuated his upright and confident posture, got out of the vehicle in slow motion, as if time had stopped to admire his transformation. Beside him, a driver in a dark suit accompanied him, looking like a bodyguard. Eyes turned towards him, and whispers reverberated among the neighbors. "Who is this man?" How did he get here? Were some of the questions spreading? Sarah, who was on the porch, froze upon seeing Mike. The man she had known as a beggar was now a successful businessman, and her heart raced as she realized the turnaround. Mike approached, his face lit up by a genuine smile that contrasted with the grim expression of the past she had known. "Sarah," he exclaimed, extending his hands. "Came to thank you." You look different," Sarah stammered, still dazed by the scene. "What happened?" Mike let out a soft laugh, full of gratitude. "Life is full of surprises, isn't it? The coin I left behind isn't just any object. It holds immense value, not just financially, but symbolically. It belongs to an ancient society of benefactors that helps those in real need." The neighbors gathered around, their faces expressing a mix of distrust and curiosity. Mike continued, looking directly into Sarah's eyes. "The tattoo you saw on my wrist represents this society. It's a symbol of compassion and transformation. I am one of them, and I'm here because you reminded me of what it means to be human." "I didn't do anything special," Sarah replied, her gaze a bit shy, but her eyes sparkled with emotion. "I just offered you a piece of food." "And that made all the difference," Mike interrupted, his words heavy with sincerity. "What you did was an act of genuine kindness in a world that often forgets what that means. I want you to be a part of this now. I want to help you help others." The crowd that had formed around them seemed frozen in a state of wonder. Sarah's eyes were fixed on Mike, absorbing his words. "What do you mean? What are you saying?" he asked, her voice trembling with anticipation. "With what I gained, I can do so much more than just help myself. I want to invest in projects that help the community, offer support to those in need. And you, Sarah, could be the key to that. I want you to be my partner in this new journey." Mike's words resonated in her heart, and a wave of hope washed over her. "Do you really believe I can help? I'm just a waitress." "You're much more than that. You have a huge heart, and that's what matters," Mike said, looking into her eyes with determination. "Let's work together. You can help me identify the needs of the community, and I'll bring the necessary resources." Sarah felt a mix of emotions, her chest tightening with the possibility of making a difference. "I accept. I want to help people. I want to give back what I received." Mike smiled, a smile that radiated hope. "Then let's start this journey together. You're not alone in this." As the neighbors watched, the scene unfolded like a modern fairy tale. And the Mercedes, a symbol of wealth and success, also became a vehicle for change. Sarah and Mike were about to transform not only their lives, but the lives of many others. And so, in the midst of that modest neighborhood, kindness and compassion began to bloom, showing that even the smallest gestures can trigger great transformations, changing not only lives, but the very spirit of the community. The murmurs of the neighbors fell silent, and all that could be heard was the promise of a new beginning. Days passed since the revealing meeting between Sarah and Mike. Sarah's life began to change when Mike invited her to learn more about the Benefactors Society. They arranged a meeting in a discreet building in the city center, where the simple exterior hid the magnitude of what was happening inside. Sarah felt a mix of nervousness and excitement. "It's an honor to be here. I just did what I thought was right." Sarah spent the next week getting to know the different projects. She visited shelters, participated in food distributions, and spoke with people who had been impacted by the society. Each encounter filled her heart with purpose and motivated her even more. On a sunny morning, Sarah decided to start where she felt most connected, helping people experiencing homelessness. With the support of Mike and other members of the society, she organized a food and clothing drive. Community's response was overwhelming. Thank you for watching. You enjoyed our content? Don't forget to like the video and share it with your friends. And to stay updated, subscribe to our channel and turn on the notification bell to receive alerts whenever we post something new. Your comments and suggestions are very important to us, so leave your opinion down below. Until next time.